Hey guys, it's Chris. It's August 13th. It's a Thursday. Uh, I posted a video yesterday about my Harlan Ellison collection, and really, something really emotional happened to me after I posted that video. And I just want to come on and I want to tell you guys about it because it it changed my mind about something. And what happened was I talked about, um, uh, gosh, why do I start these things and my brain freezes? It drives me crazy. I was talking about Stalking the Nightmare and Deathbird Stories and all of these books of Harlan Ellison's. And I talked about how there are stories in those books that I haven't read yet and I was saving them. And my friend, Jason Davis, who was Harlan Ellison's editor, he watched that video and he sent me an email and he said, stop hoarding stories. He said, don't do that. He said that he used to do it, and he was talking to Harlan one time, and he said that he had this kind of a pamphlet that wasn't attributed to anyone, and apparently it was an unattributed Gerald Kirsch story or novella or something like that, or maybe it was a novel. And if you don't know, Gerald Kirsch was Harlan Ellison's favorite writer. He said it a whole bunch of times. He said it on the Late Late Show with Tom Snyder. He said it I think in the introduction to Slippage, he says that too. But he surprised Jason by sitting down that night and just reading the thing. And Jason said, why, I guess basically, why'd you read it so fast if it was something that you hadn't read before? And Harlan said that people who wait for stuff believe that they're going to have the time, that person is still going to be around to read these things in 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. And that what I took from that is basically, why wait? Why think something could happen to me after I finish this video? And the stories that I've never read will go unread. The books I've never read because they seem too important to me to read right now. It's over there. There's when Peter Straub died, he was writing a novel, and I can't remember, Wreckage. It's called Wreckage, and it wasn't finished. And Subterranean Press published that unfinished novel and the really long outline that goes along with it. And I put that on the shelf and I thought, well, I'll read that some other time. And after getting that email from Jason yesterday telling me, he'd said, wait a minute. He sent me another email. I guess he was watching the video, and every time I would say something, he was shooting something else off. And he said, hold on a second, you've never read Grail? He said, you have to stop everything you're doing right now and read Grail. And I said, okay, I will. And I did. I stopped everything that I was doing and I read Grail because I had never read it. And Grail it's the first story in Stalking the Nightmare. And if you watch that, in my last video, that I thought that this was a really minor collection because I didn't know what I was talking about. And I had never read Grail. And if I had read Grail, I would never, ever, ever have thought that this is a minor collection, because Grail is astonishing. So here's the good and the bad. Here are the pros and cons of hoarding stories, as Jason said. One is that I've been depriving myself of Grail all these years, for decades, actually. And the pro is that I got to read that story yesterday, and what it did was it made me feel like I felt when I first started reading Harlan Ellison. It made me feel like I felt when the first time I read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the first time I read The Cheese Stands Alone, the first time I read A Boy and His Dog. There was that. You know what I'm talking about. It's hard to describe it, but there was that absolute thrill and just that breathtaking sense of witnessing something that is pretty close to being a miracle, right? If you're the kind of reader that I am, you know exactly what that means, because it isn't just Harlan Ellison, it's who your favorite writer is. And their words and their work can lift you up right off the ground. And when I read Grail, I'm getting myself all excited again. I'm sorry. When I read Grail yesterday, that's exactly what happened to me. It was like I had never read Ellison before. It was like I was 15, 16, 17 again, discovering these astonishing stories. And part of me is glad that I waited so long to read it. And part of me, a really big part of me, a bigger part of me, is with Jason and with Harlan and saying, there's no reason to put off reading these stories. There is no reason to save them. Something that Jason said, he said, you go back to it. You can go back to it. You can read it and then not read it for 10 years and go back to it. But you've got to get that initial reading out of the way, right? You have to have that experience, because as far as I'm concerned, I've been depriving myself of all of the stories I haven't read in here, of all of the stories I haven't read in Deathbird Stories. In the stories that I haven't read in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream or Gentleman Junkie, there is no reason for me to wait anymore. There was no reason for me to wait to begin with, right? I just thought that maybe I was making it sweeter for myself, or I don't know. I don't really know what the thought process is behind that, even though I held on to it for decades. But it just doesn't make sense to save stories for whatever that day in the future you think is going to be, where it will blossom for you, or where the most miraculous thing will happen. This is what I'm going to be doing. Just sit down and read those stories. Just sit down and read that novel. If you're waiting for the right time to read War and Peace, the right time is now. If you're waiting for the right time to read 1984 or Gone with the Wind, or whatever other book is out there that it always just seems to be beyond your grasp. Moby Dick, something like that. And you think, well, someday I'll get to that. Well, get to it now. Now, there's no reason to wait. This is what I learned yesterday. What I also learned is that when you have your favorite writers, it is like being in a relationship. When I'll use Stephen King as one example. I've talked about this before. I absolutely loved King. I absolutely adored King. And when I found out that he couldn't give me what I wanted from a writer and what I needed from a writer, I broke up with him, right? When I rekindled this relationship with Harlan Ellison yesterday by reading Grail, it was like renewing my vows. It was like falling in love all over again. All of those emotions were there. Ellison is one of my favorite writers. I love this story. I love that story. I love that book. But the depth was missing, right? The emotional impact was missing because I was keeping it from myself. What it reminds me of is there's the newest song that Billy Joel put out a couple of years ago called Turn the Lights Back On. And that's what that song is about. He says, maybe I was blind, right? They're just trying to figure out how to get back into this relationship and how to feel those things again. That is a terrific song if you've never heard it. Turn the Lights Back On by Billy Joel. Great song, great song. But when I was thinking about this today, that song reminded me of this and how I felt reading Grail yesterday and thinking, man, I just love this writing. And I have forgotten it because I became complacent. I don't know, maybe I got lazy. Maybe I thought I knew everything I needed to know about Ellison's work. I don't know. I don't really think that sounds arrogant, and I don't think there was any arrogance in it. It's just living, you just live life and you keep going forward, and important things lose their importance. The things that were radiant begin to dull. And then you've got to rediscover those things, and they bring that light back into your life. And that is exactly what happened to me when I read Grail yesterday by Harlan Ellison. I realized what I was missing. I realized what I was depriving myself of. And Jason told me, I don't know how many people have this book. I don't know how many of you have Harlan 101, Encountering Ellison. This was printed, this was from Ellison or HarlanEllisonBooks.com. I don't know when this came out. Where's the, let's see. This edition is copyrighted 2011. And so this is an introduction to Harlan's work. Here, I'll show you the table of contents. There's the table of contents. And Grail is in here. And Jason said, read Grail in Harlan 101 because I found mistakes, and the mistakes have been corrected in here. And all of the stories in here these are like the definitive Ellison story, or the definitive versions of those stories. And this has Pet in it, which I had talked about before. This is a really neat book. Again, you probably won't be able to find this anywhere. I don't know how many people have it, but this is where I read Grail, and I'll read some other stories out of here too. And because of what happened, and because of what Jason said in his email, I thought, okay, this is one of those books, The Executioner's Song by Norman Mailer, and it's thick. It's boy, holy smokes, it's a big boy. It's 1,024 pages. And I thought, all right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tackle this book this summer. I have always wanted to read The Executioner's Song, and I thought, I'm going to do it. So I started reading it, and after I read Grail, I realized, you know what I need to do? I need to spend time reading Harlan Ellison. I need to spend time catching up on the things I've been depriving myself. So however long it takes me, I'm not going to rush through these. I'm going to read what I haven't read in Deathbird Stories, and this is the edition I'm going to read. And I'm going to read through Stalking the Nightmare. And I'm going to stop hoarding stories. I'm going to stop thinking I need to wait for some golden hour on some golden day and some far year from now. I don't need to do that. I don't know why I ever thought I needed to, why I thought it was such a special thing. But the special thing is reading the stories and enjoying the stories and getting the emotional charge out of the stories. And that's what I want. And I'm not depriving myself of that anymore. And I'm going to stop hoarding stories. I'm going to stop hoarding novels, and I'm just going to read them. And that's what I'm going to start doing. Well, the summer's almost over. This is August, but that's what I'm going to do from here on out of this year. Is I'm just going to read the things that I've been depriving myself of, and it's a little bit like what Gareth over at Book Songs and Other Magic is going to do. He's got 50 ways to leave the planet, and he wants to focus on books that he's been neglecting. And this is the same thing. I didn't plan this to happen, but it just came about this way. So don't Don't hoard books. Don't deprive yourself. Sit down, read them, love them, rekindle that relationship with your favorite writer, and see what happens. That's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for listening. I'm Chris. That's the book cut. This is just a heater. It looks nice, but it's not. That fire isn't real. It's not real. It isn't real, guys. Peace.